Okay guys, today we're going to be doing a galaxy themed rock. These are the supplies we'll be using. A beauty blender, that is most essential. I prefer rounded because if you use square you get a lot of square edges. Large paint brushes to paint the background. A stiff bristle brush if you'd like to do any flecking to make stars. Also a fine point ballpoint pen if it will focus. Nope. Not one to focus, and also a fine point paintbrush to help create more stars. You can also cheat and use a paint pen, however it is harder because the base is thicker. Here's the products we'll be using. This is my sealant I prefer. I prefer a flat coat, although it is not necessarily flat because it does give it more of a sheen than just the acrylic paint alone. We have our white, our glow in the dark, our Key West blue, sapphire blue, that has a bit of a sheen. I don't know if you guys can see that on here. I have my bright blue. I just picked up this blue glitter, if you guys can see it, and it's called Stargazer. We have our plum, our violet, and our black. Alright, so this is pretty much what it's gonna kind of look like when we're done. This is just an example, so you can see the colors and all that. Here's our rock we're going to use today, and I think I'm going to use this side. First we start off with painting it black. I'm going to squirt it right onto the rock so I don't waste any product. Ooh, got a goober. I need to get new paint. If you wet your brushes a little bit, you guys, your paint will go a lot further. And I don't mean like get them soaking wet, just a little bit. I'm going to do this, and we'll come back to it once it's all done. Alright, that's mostly dry. It's pretty important for it to be pretty dang dry, because if you start using your blues and your pinks and your purples on this, it's going to start muddying up the colors. Black is very potent. So the first color I want to use is going to be my pink, or should I say our plum. I'm going to put this onto a plate and dab the thick end of my beauty blender into the paint, and then dab it a few times also on my plate. You don't want too much paint on the end of your beauty blender, as it will come out looking really kind of spotty. And kind of just start dabbing. You're going to have to add more and more so that it'll really show up, but you kind of just want to be sporadic with it. Like I said, dab a few times on your plate. And don't try to constantly go over the same area over your wet paint, because you're just going to be removing. If you want to put more paint in that area to make the color more intense, let it dry and then come back to it. That'll do for now. I feel like that's a good start. I will come back to the pink. Alright guys, so it's pretty important again for you to make sure that your beauty blender is clean in between each paint, because again you'll start to muddy your colors. I want to go in and use our Key West blue. Again, we're going to put that directly onto our plate. We're going to dab the thick end of our beauty blender into the paint, and then a few times off to the side on the plate, just to disperse it and make sure it's not too thick on there. And again, you want to be really sporadic with this. Put a little bit more blue on my plate. work it around the end of the Beauty Blender so it's not too concentrated. And throw a few of these guys in here. You can always go back through with your black if you feel like you're using too much of the outer space area. So don't worry about that. Just worry about getting, I guess, your little galaxy swirls the way you like them. All right, so we have our teal, or I guess our Key West blue on. All right, once again, make sure your Beauty Blender is all clean. Next, I'll be using my sapphire that's a bit shimmery. Again, we'll be putting this guy on our plate and dabbing the Beauty Blender in that. If I can get it out, there it goes. All right. Once again, you don't want to make sure the Beauty Blender isn't holding too much water. It will dilute your paint. All right. Make sure, again, you're putting the thick side in. Dab it a few times on your plate. I want to throw some in over here. I feel like this side needs some deeper blue. Alright, since I'm doing a little bit of a gradient between these guys, I'm actually going to go back and re-dip in my teal without taking my blue off. Put a little bit more on my plate. I want to put some more of that in here. And it actually looks quite nice once you kind of do a gradient with these guys. Oh look, you can see the shimmer. Very pretty. And a little bit more of the teal again. Do a little bit of a dabbing. And I want to throw some in over here. I don't know if you guys can start to see the galaxy we're creating here. Alright, so I'm actually, now that the pink is dry, I'm going to go back through and do another layer on this because I want to bring the pink out a little bit more. Alright, so we're going to go back to our plum. I want to put a bit more of that on our plate. Again, use the thick end. Dab it around a little bit. Actually looks like I got a little bit of blue in there, which is kind of a mistake, but it doesn't look too bad. I'm going to put a little bit more pink on my Beauty Blender and take the blue off. That's a boo-boo, but it's a pretty boo-boo. Alright. So I kind of just wiped it off really good to make sure that it's pink again. Put some of that stuff on there. And so with the pink, to get some definition, it's always kind of cool to throw in some white right next to your pink. I'm knocking everything over. Right next to your pink. And I will show you what that looks like on your Beauty Blender here in a second, if I can get it out. There's that guy and that guy. All right. Pink and just a tad bit of white. All right, so you see that white there? I'm going to dab it around my plate a little bit more to kind of spread it around. But so you kind of just get that swirl effect. Try not to get so much daubs. And then go ahead and apply that guy on there. You'll get kind of a nice cloudy effect through the pink. Nothing in nature is a solid color. That's a great thing to remember if you want to make something look really realistic. Alright, I'm kind of feeling how that's looking with the white on there. I might throw a bit more pink just to make sure I don't lose my pinkness. But I really like the way it looks with all the white. Alright. maybe just a tad bit more because I'm a perfectionist. So while you guys are doing this, like I said, try not to be too perfectionist about it, like I'm being, because then you're just gonna mess up your work. But don't worry, like I said, you can always go back through with the black and add some more black space if you feel like you're getting a little too much color in your galaxy. I think I want to go back over here and add a little bit more of that sapphire because it's just looking a little bit too light for me. I'm going to go ahead and throw that on my plate. Dab your thick end of the Beauty Blender on it. And I am going to put that right in there. Beautiful. And you know, if it mixes in with the pink a little bit, so be it. Like I said, it makes a really pretty color. All right. And I actually am feeling a little crazy. Let's throw a little bit of our pink kind of over in the blue somewhere. Let's do over here. I'm gonna pivot this guy just to give it some color over here. Oh, that's looking kind of pretty. Be creative, you guys. That's kind of just the best way I can help you with your galaxy rocks. Nothing's perfect. Be creative, free-flowing. Throw color where you want it. It's gonna look even better when you add, you know, your moon and your stars and all that other great stuff. I like how that's coming in over there. Let's throw a little bit over here too. Sure. Beautiful. I'm kind of happy with that. I'm going to add a little bit more black because I feel like I've used too much space. Again, we will be using our Beauty Blender, you guys. And if you don't want to run to the sink every time, you can see my napkin I have over here. Just make sure you're wiping really well. All right. All right, you guys, go ahead and squirt a little bit of black on your plate. Be aware that a little bit of black goes a very long way. So pour very sparingly onto your plate. You really don't need very much. And also use very little bit on your Beauty Blender. I don't know if this will pull up. That might even be a little bit too much. So I'm gonna dab a few more times on my plate to remove some excess paint. All right, so you can see it's not as densely packed with paint. So I'm just gonna kind of go through here and put where I feel like there should be a little bit more sky. Bring it in here a bit. It'll also kind of help you soften your lines if you feel like you've kind of made these a little too bubbly or a little too solid. I'm going to dab a little bit more into my black paint. A little bit goes a long way. Make sure you dab a few times on your paint or on your plate before you put it back onto your rock. You'll be super upset with yourself if you just put a big yucky black blob on your rock. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and do this to a few more areas on my rock that I feel like need to be filled in. And I'm going to come back to it once I'm done. All right, you guys are back to the rock. So I just kind of brought it in to spaces, kind of made it a little bit more of a swirly kind of effect, or at least kind of how I feel looks swirly. Next part we're going on to is going to be kind of just making your galaxy look more galaxy-like. We'll be adding the moon and the stars. This part is pretty dang simple. You can choose to do a crescent moon or a full moon. I think to make this one a little bit different, I'm going to do a crescent moon. Alright, so I will be using my pretty fine tipped point paintbrush. If you guys don't have a very fine tipped paintbrush, you can always make one by cutting off a few bristles from one that's already pretty thin. That's actually what I did to make this guy a little thinner. So I'm going to use him to make my moon. If you're going to be using doing a full moon, you really don't need such a fine tip paintbrush. Which side do I want to do it on? Now this is kind of the difficult part for me, is like, where do I want to paint? Do I want to do that there? Do I want to move it around? Maybe we'll do it this way. We'll put the moon right in there. I think that's kind of pretty. All right. I'm going to freehand this, you guys. Wish me luck. Not too shabby, I'd say. All right, you guys, I am going to fill in my moon. You guys fill in your moon, and we'll come back to the video when that's done. Alright, you guys, it's looking pretty like galaxy-like, right? All the different colors and swirls. I'm going to clean this guy off. So now here comes the really messy part. I'm going to try a little bit of flecking just to show you guys this technique. I'm not sure if I really want to use this technique. So again, we'll be using a little bit of white and putting that onto our plate. It might also help you guys, I forgot to mention, I apologize, if your bristles, again, are a little wet, like I always say, but in this case, it would just be helping the white paint be a little bit thinner, because when you have thicker paint, it's just a little bit harder to fleck. So yeah, try to water it down a little bit, not too much to the point where it's not even staying on your brush, but... And then, like I said, messy part, you're going to flick it with your fingers. So you kind of see that effect that gives. It gives very sporadic, just like stars are. And sometimes, though, sometimes it can give too much of a splatter effect. I apologize, my camera turned off. So I think I'm going to do just one more because I did it on both sides. We'll just make it cohesive, I guess. Make sure your brush is a little wet. Dip it in your paint. And then one more time, I'm going to do a nice little flick. Alright. So, if you get any of these little kind of stringy guys, you can always try to play it off like it's a shooting star, so you can always build on it, or you can take your black using a fine point pen, or pen. You can use your pen, or your paintbrush, and just kind of paint over that area, or whatever area it's in. If it's in the pink, use the pink. If it's in the black, use the black. You guys know what I mean. So these are also slightly faded looking. I'm going to go back through with my fine pencil. I keep wanting to say pencil. My fine paintbrush in my white paint. And I want to add a few more stars. Try not to do them evenly like polka dots, like a polka dot dress. My mind usually tends to make things evenly, but stars are not even in the sky. So you could do clusters of 3 and 4. You can do big and small. Just try, like I said, not to space them out evenly like I was just starting to do. If you guys want to do a twinkle, we'll start with our dot. Very lightly bring that dot up. Very lightly bring that dot down to the side and to the other side. And there is your twinkle. It doesn't need to be even, you guys. Twinkle. Kind of brings out the more star appearance of the rest of them. So I usually like to add a few twinkles to this rock. So I'm going to go through and add my stars, and I'm going to have you guys do the same. I'll meet you back. Alright, so I'm actually feeling pretty good about my placement of stars. I don't want to do too many in the center because I'm going to still do my zodiac sign. If you want to do a shooting star, you can always, like I said, if you want to turn one of those guys into it. They're thicker at the base and they tend to trail off. And you kind of do a squiggly to kind of give its trail. Alright, there's your shooting stars. Turn it into a pretty radical galaxy. I'm going to go ahead and do my zodiac sign, and I will catch back up with you guys when that is done. So you guys decide whether you want to do some more stars, or if you guys know any constellations, that would be... Alright, so I went a little crazy with my moon and I ended up messing it up, so I had to fill it in. So I applied my glow-in-the-dark paint, and I'm now waiting for it to dry. If you want your paint to show up brighter, I absolutely recommend putting it in really thick coats. I don't know if you can see how thick that is on there, but it's definitely really thick. The thicker the better the glow you will get from it. So pretty much that was your galaxy tutorial, and get creative, you guys. Hope you have fun.